Hey, welcome back. It's William from Fatherhood Reimagined. Now, if you've had kids for any length of time, I'm sure that you have met the monster under their bed, or at least heard about it. Now, I'm going to tell you today about how that monster and my daughter taught me one of the most important life lessons I've ever learned. Stay tuned. Now, as parents, we often get caught up teaching our kids, guiding them, and helping shape them into those beautiful little humans that they're going to turn out to be. But if we're being honest with ourselves, aren't they teaching us along the way as well? They're teaching us to look at the world through their eyes. And that's a hugely important thing, because their eyes have an entirely different perspective on the world than ours do. Granted, it's a lot more innocent, but if you really look deeply, it's also a lot more joyful. They can look at things that we would pass right by, and they're filled with wonder, and they explore, and they touch, and they feel, and they put it in their mouths. But all the while, they're giggling, they're laughing, and they love the fact that they found something new. What their little eyes do is see the beauty in the most mundane of things. Now, we as parents, as we focus on being a teacher and a guide, now, if we were to look at that and learn from it, they're teaching us to look at the world and see the beauty in the little things, even the mundane. Their innocent little perspectives can teach us how to reshape the world, and that's a pretty fantastic thing. Now, I know parenting can be chaotic. It's easy to get lost in the daily grind, our work schedules, our relationships with our spouses, our friends, our parents, all the rest of it. However, it's no wonder that we often lose track of looking at those little things and becoming a student of what's available to us, being a student of what our kids can teach us. So when we get caught up in our schedules and our tasks and our to-do lists and our social feeds and everything else that we have, before you know it, we've lost sight of what really matters. We're so focused on being adults and being responsible and living our lives that we forget to stop and, forgive the pun, smell the roses. We forget to be present and appreciate all the little things that we see along the way. This again goes back to being a student of how our children see the world. Okay, we're going to keep coming back to this theme. We're not always the teachers and guides. Sometimes we can be students. Now, my daughter has taught me a lot of life lessons over the last 5 years. She's taught me the importance of living in the moment, and she's taught me that life is too short, that we have to enjoy the moments that we do have. Those are some things that I think every parent probably learns along the way. What is it they say? The days are really long, the years are really short. So once I learned how to become a student and to listen, I was able to start seeing more joy in those little things in life, the mundane bits that she found so much joy in. Granted, I don't run around grabbing, touching, poking, prodding, investigating, and putting into my mouth everything I find along the way. But I do try to see all of the pretty things that life has to offer and appreciate them. Okay, so now you're asking, what about the monster under the bed? Let me tell you. So one of the most impactful lessons that led to most of this epiphany was when my daughter was going through a phase. And again, if you're a certain age, if you have children of a certain age, you understand about the monster under the bed. So she went through a phase for a few weeks where there was nothing that my wife or I could do. So my daughter went through this phase for a few weeks where she was terrified of a monster under her bed. And there was nothing that I could do that would assuage her of this fear, that would get her to understand that it's not real and she doesn't have to worry about it. Not how her brain thinks. That's how an adult brain thinks. And she was absolutely convinced that it was lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce and attack her once we left the room. I tried everything at that point. I turned on lights. I crawled under the bed. I showed her that there was nothing there. We put a light on underneath her bed so she could look anytime she wanted. We tried everything in our power to show her that there was nothing to be afraid of. But alas, none of it worked. So one night, after an exasperating session of trying to prove to her that there was no monster under the bed, my wife and I went back to our room. And as I was laying there, I had that moment of clarity. And I'm sure as parents you've experienced them as well. They can be about almost anything. But for me, the epiphany I had, I realized her fear wasn't the monster at all. It was her just wanting to feel safe. It was her wanting to feel protected and know that her mother and I would always be there for her and do whatever it took to make her feel safe. And in that moment, I realized I had to be a listener. I had to learn from her. And I had to say, in this moment, I can't be the adult or the guardian or the authority figure. I have to hear what she needs. I had to be in that moment and understand what she really needed. And the thing that I really forgot to do, if I'm being completely honest with myself, was through all of my acts of trying to prove to her that that monster doesn't exist, was I didn't just go and comfort her and reassure her that no matter how much fear she felt, we would take care of her. And that was my major lesson, was saying I need to stop being an adult all the time and put myself in her shoes, to listen and to learn from my daughter so that I could better understand how to help her. We're wired to worry. That's what we do as parents. I'm not saying to stop that. But what I am saying is every once in a while, try to put yourself into their shoes and understand that if you listen to what they're telling you and stop being an adult that has to solve problems and be reassuring and use logic and say, what can I do to help my child in that moment? Listen to what they're asking. If they want a sense of comfort, we provide it. If they need a sense of joy, we provide it. But we don't always just fall back on the adult trappings of logic and authority. Sometimes we just have to be a kid too and say, what would I want? Now, one of the other lessons that came out of this was I understand that I'm not always going to be perfect, and that as a parent, I won't always be perfect. I won't always know the answers, and I won't always know how to handle a situation. But being there, being in that moment, being in that situation, and providing what you can is the real responsibility of a parent. It's to have fun, make sure that your kids understand that you're there, no matter what. And most importantly to me, it's about being present and being open to learning from my daughter, even though she's far younger than I am. She has a wisdom that's unique to her and unique to her age and unique to her perspective. Why wouldn't I want to learn from that? So hey, I want to hear from you. What are some of the life lessons and stories that you've gotten from your kids? Have you hit that point where you decided that you were going to be a student as well and share in the way that they look at the world? Maybe you have some other stories. Maybe you have some other life lessons that they've taught you. Like I said, drop them in the comments and let the rest of the community hear about them. And if you haven't already, check out some of the other videos we have here on the channel about parenting. Till next time, have a nice day.